Hey guys, it's Sajin, and I've been getting into this Interserver arena stuff for the last 2 weeks, and of course it's the second week into the first season as this video is made, and I wanted to share with you my thoughts on what are the better units to use in Interserver arena offenses, and I made a tier list reflecting my thoughts, my experiences, what people I know are using, what I'm using, and what I would love to use if I had the units. And this list reflects, of course, that personal experience, but also the current meta and the first season of the Interserver Arena battles. Because as the weeks of the first season goes on, and as the seasons themselves go on, I assume we'll be seeing a lot of different defenses. But the defenses that we've been seeing are pretty much regular arena type of defenses, and kind of and a lot of defense are in the vein of a Guild Wars style defense as well, where that kind of diverts from regular arena defenses in the sense that a lot of regular defenses in arena were speed based, 33% speed lead defenses, but you're going to see a lot of like tankier defenses as well. And of course, you did see that in a regular arena, but the prevalency is definitely increased as people have noticed as the weeks have gone on that their defenses are getting any wins, and they're tweaking their setups as the season progresses. So let's start off with the first tier, or the top tier of 100, and we have four monsters in that tier of the first being Leo. And the reason I have Leo in the top most tier is from what I'm seeing in my my bracket, my team battle, which is 34, and I'm seeing a lot of Savannah defenses, or some type of Beast Rider defense, or a large majority of 33% speed lead defenses as well. So I found that Leo can kind of bridge the gap when it comes to rune quality. Like, my runes are not great. I ended up in my bracket at team 34. I probably don't deserve to be anywhere near that. And a lot of the fights I've had are difficult, but Leo has really come through as far as making a lot of defenses automatic wins with very little effort. I mean, the teams I use with Leo, I can just press auto and I can guarantee myself a win, especially those against Beast Riders. So if we're going to be seeing a lot of Savannahs, and if we're going to be seeing a lot of defenses without healing, you could bring in a Leo and even just one support unit and really neutralize a lot of speed-based defenses, or defenses that can be really interrupted as far as turn order goes, because maybe they are just not elementally advantaged against wind. Leo has done a lot of work for me. If you guys have Leo, he's great and easy to rune, and he is really easy to skill up. All the Dragon Knights are really easy to skill up compared to other monsters. So Leo has been a star. I'm sure he's working out for you too. You probably used him in Guild Wars all the time against Savannah. The same premise applies here. And the next three monsters in the top tier are also monsters you see in guild battles and siege battles, defenses and offenses. Martina, Shina, Nana. So the twins, it's obvious. I mean, when it comes to being able to strip, defense break, stun targets, not just just remove buffs, but really just take buffs. These two monsters are the preeminent units, in my opinion, in Interserver arena offenses. Rune fast enough, you can basically once again guarantee a lot of wins against defenses that are not mirror defenses to your offense. I would say that you already have great runes on these two monsters anyways. Like, this is not RTA where you can just concentrate good runes and using your regular rune sets, and using monsters from guild and siege battles just makes sense. It keeps you from having to dilute your rune quality. So you'll see a lot of monsters in this list make it to the list merely for the fact that you're probably using them in siege battles. And I think it makes sense that you want to have that monster flexibility in Interserver arena as well. So the twins are amazing, complemented by Nana. Nana provides a great safety net, but at the same time, Nana can be really used in any team offensively, from your typical fast teams like the Twins with like a Vanessa, or Nana in a bruiser team. Like Nana can find her way into any team. So that flexibility gives her a top tier spot on this list. So moving on to the 95 tier, we have Bulwark as the first monster, and Bulwark is here because of the nature of the meta, in the way that buffs are going to be happening on both sides, offensively and defensively, and having a unit that can dish out good damage that is not a glass cannon, not like it's not like a Lucian or anything like that. It can serve the purpose of a bruiser team damage dealer, and any type of monster that is that can be ruined with hit points and defense on the offense is going to outshine and be much more safe to clear defenses in Interserver than, let's say, your typical cleave teams like your Lucian and Julie's. So Bulwark, with great synergy with Awusa and like even O'Reilly, and of course taking into defenses that have a lot of buffs, it just makes sense to have Bulwark really high on the list, and if you have it, to use it as much as you can as a safe clear. Next we have Pisama, and Pisama is here because, as you know, having the fastest speed leads in Arena is that important. I'll go ahead and mention another monster in this tier, Vanessa. So these two monsters, they're here because they make you fast. I mean, being the fastest speed leads and having some kit to them, reset and damage, and Pisama having a res and defense break and a very rare silence from, it's not silence, but a very rare increase in cooldown time from Vanessa, they enable you to compete speed-wise with speed defenses. And if you are confident that you're faster, you need these to be faster. And they're here because you'll be using them a lot. A great deal. And another monster that people sleep on but really makes Interserver easy, along with Siege offenses really easy, is a Borgnine or your Water Bison monster. Just the sheer amount of destroy it does can really speed up matches where with traditional destroy runes, even like a triple destroy Wind Monkey, it's just not as fast. And the ability to reduce damage as you destroy HP makes the matches safer and safer as time progresses. You can rune this on Triple Revenge, and it's really, really effective, especially if you bring into a lot of wind monsters, or if you just kind of tweak your team so they have to attack this monster. Triple Revenge works really well. It keeps you from having to throw a really precious violent runes and will runes on the monster like this. Just throw the best tanky revenge runes that you have. Kind of get some accuracy on Borgnine. You want provokes to land if possible. So Borgnine is great. Makes slow clearing much more safe and reliable, and also makes it sometimes just even possible in the first place because you can put defensive monsters into 1 or 2 hits before they die range. The next tier is going to be the 90 with Wusa and Mulong and Nigong. Now, these two pioneers, I mean, the amount of utility they bring from CC to big damage with S2, resurrection, or just immunity and shielding from Musa, they are incredible as far as making Bulwark work. They're incredible as far as making this Mulong S3 pretty safely. They make tanky teams just viable. I mean, if you have both of these things and you S2 on a monster back to back, it's over. I mean, you'll be clearing that defense in no time at all. But even if you only have one of them, like having the shield up on Wusa, S3ing with Mulong, or just having Wusa in your monster box gives you a lot of potential to do really well with slow clearing a lot of Interserver offenses. And of course, the reason I'm mentioning slow clearing instead of cleaving these defenses is because the rewards are decent. I mean, you get a lot of scrolls if you are very proficient at Interserver Arena, and of course, there's going to be a season end rewards. There's also round end rewards for winning for the server. I mean, it's definitely worth your while to get more summons in your account. And Wusa is probably used in your siege defenses and offenses. Great unit, awesome in RTA as well. Mulong, HP lead. So if you want to do kind of like a Bruiser style offense, having an HP lead in Igong and in Mulong really makes it, of course, just better. You'll be doing more damage for HP based monsters. I'll take a quick side note. I'll make a quick side note for Wind Monkey. Having a 33% HP lead on Wind Monkey is great and all, but you'll find that the element of wind maybe is that it's not very, how do I say this? It's not great for the meta. I mean, if you're going to go up against Kakis and Tessarians and Laikas, having wind-based monsters, I mean, you're going to have some that are very, very good, but Mulong's just better for the mere fact that it has strip CC, big one-shot damage capability, and an HP lead on a water monster. I mean, you could bring, if you brought Bulwark, Lulu, Mulong, Wusa into a defense, I don't even care what element the defense is, you're going to do great. Where if I was to say you're going to bring a Wind Monkey in, and I use Wind Monkey all the time because I don't have Mulong, I don't have Nigong, I don't have Cardinal. So Wind Monkey is one of my better HP leads. It gets pretty dicey. I mean, to the point where I don't even want to bring him, and even though I don't have another good replacement in certain situations, I'd rather just bring a resistance lead over the Wind Monkey due to the element, especially when going, like I mentioned, going against the prevalent number of defenses that have Cocky. But Wind Monkey is great for destroy runes. Anyways, so that is the 90 tier. Let's go down to 85, and 85 is full of support units that they can go into your tanky bruiser offenses, but they can also go into your fast clearing offenses. They're just really well-rounded units that are great in any aspect of the game, from PvE to PvP, guild content. Riley having the buffs makes Bulwark great, makes your damage dealers great. Cocky and Riley, amazing. Defense and a kind of smallish cleanse on the S3. Lulu's still very, very good, having cleansing and big healing, being a more ideal element at certain times. Fran, I mean, yeah, so in this type of arena, you don't have that negative HP bonus and attack bonus as the match goes on. It's just, there is no state change within arena. So maybe not as good as regular arena, but Fran's really, really great for attack buff, immunity, cleanse. Attack break, underrated attack break on Amusha. Molly, I mean, you can put Molly in any team, works fantastic. I don't need to say much more about that. And let's get into the 80 tier that we have units that complement the bruiser style offenses. We're gonna have two on Amusha here, the dark and light. And the reason for that is just if you can bring into Interserver Arena offensive units that have some type of survivability, sustainability, or tankiness to them, it's just going to be so much safer than bringing in, like I said, glass cannon offensive monsters. So you're going to see a lot of those types of monsters over your cleaving types, which you'll find at the bottom of the list, just for the mere fact that there are so many defenses that are not well tuned or created that you can get away with cleaving. So, but going back to 80 tier here, Onimushas, just a really good, reliable DPS units. With all the Onimushas, where you don't have to rely on crit, it just makes damage very consistent. And going against monsters that lower crit, like let's say a Beta, or let's say one of these, the Molly or the Light Unicorn, consistent damage is fantastic. Consistent damage on Violent is just incredible. So yeah, so if you have one of those, I do not have them. If I did, I'd be using them all the time. But let's move on to Abilio. So the blue druid, the water druid, it's like another safety net, right? So in the way that if you take your team into a defense, and the defense is just much more capable than you thought, monsters like Abilio and Tiana give you the opportunity to at least respond. But also at the same time, Abilio is a great monster overall from the healing, from the provokes. I love Abilio, and he'll find his way into some of your very slower interserver offenses. I'm very sure if you have him. Feng Yang is next, and Feng Yang is just, like I said, a monster that's really tanky. We're talking big HP, big defense, but also having a pretty reliable defense break. And I like the multi-hit on S1 as well, because there's so many monsters that just require those types of multi-hitting monsters to die. So we talked about the Dark and Light on Amusha. Bastet. Bastet is an enabler, but also a let's say add some sustain. So it gives you increased attack bar, attack buff, but also the shield really helps. Works great in a if you need buffs for Bulwark. If you don't have Wusa, it is a stand-in, but also makes your cleave teams really well. So it kind of finds its way in this list because it can kind of go all over, kind of like how any of these support units can in the tier above it as well. Poseidon. Poseidon is always an underrated unit. But the great thing about Poseidon is if you do want to kind of cleave, or if you want to go with a CC cleave idea, Poseidon has the ability to just not let them go with attack bar decreasing spells and silencing. It's a great monster that I think more people should use, because if you're not really finely tuned as far as speed goes, he can give you that opportunity to get your team on the same page, but also just never let the team that you're fighting do anything to you in the first couple of rounds. As the fight goes on, maybe it gets kind of sketchy with Poseidon, but overall a great monster when it comes to, in my opinion, wanting to kind of quote unquote cleave things. I would say him over other ones that you might find lower in this list. That's what I would prefer that people do instead. And to round out the 80 tier, we have Akroma and Artemiel. Once again, in the same vein, monsters that have sustainability, survivability, that do a lot of damage at the same time, that give your team some utility in the terms of healing and defense buff from Artemiel. Can go pretty well with a Feng Yang or any other type of defensive base damage monster. And plus, I think a Destroy Artemiel has really messed me up a couple times on defense as well. So he's kind of burned into my brain at this very moment. Let's move on to 75. And we have Mephisto first. And the Mephisto is here because you're going to find a lot of defenses that have res kind of synergies, that have resurrecting monsters, that have monsters that revive themselves. And with the sheer prevalence of those types of defenses, you would imagine Mephisto would be higher on this list because you're pretty much going to be fighting them like every other defense. It's just that Mephisto doesn't bring a lot to the table when it comes to putting him in your 4-person team. So that kind of, in my mind, takes him down a notch or two. I'd love to see him higher if you just had a little bit more utility, but it makes sense to have him when you're fighting against, like, we're talking the Pernas, the Nanas, the Vanessas, the Nigongs, all that kind of stuff. Mephisto can shut that down and really neutralize the strategy when it comes to that. I love Chung Pung still, even in Interserver Arena. So I have him here with the ability to do the pushback on attack bar, like the Poseidon, but have a little bit more kit when it comes to being able to reset skills, having strip, possibility for defense break, and a pushback on skill 1. I love Chung Pung still when you know that the teams are pretty vulnerable to a pushback, don't have a lot of counter, don't have a lot of ability to maybe potentially outspeed you. Savannah is the same vein as a Chung Pung. Savannah doing a little bit more damage. A lot more rune requirements, I think, for Savannah. But you probably, if you have Savannah, you probably have it runed really well for Siege. So you can definitely use it in teams that you want to control if you have like very fast runes. And we have Pontos. Pontos is just a good unit when it comes to giving your team speed lead. Not the best speed lead, but speed regardless. Survivability, buffs or bulwark, and a silence as well. In this tier we have as well the 2 Dragon Knights. We got the Jaeger and we have the Leica. Having these units maybe underrated again in arena, but you'll find yourself being able to roughly ruin these monsters and still make them very effective. So I like the idea that they can be very effective when chosen correctly for certain defenses, and the requirements to make them very good are not so high. They're not like Savannah, right? When it comes to Devilmon and runes. So if you want tanky bruisers, or if you want survivability when it comes to your bruisers, I like the Dragon Knights all around. I even like the Chow for Interserver Arena as well. I don't have him on the list. I just don't think when it comes to water elemental monsters that he has much room to work himself into it. But if that's what you have, that's what you have. You can find use for Chow. I mentioned the Wind Monkey already. A great solution when you want to kind of slow clear, but you don't have the Mulong or Nigong like I mentioned. But I have a lot of great success with a destroy runed Wind Monkey when I don't want to bring Borgnine. If I want to bring all wind monsters, Wind Monkey is really, really great. Plus, the constant revenging for teammates being attacked is really good as well, because you're just fighting against AI. Cardinal with a bigger hit point lead skill, but great slow, stun, provoke. Really good monster. But much better than Arte. Obviously, he doesn't have such a solid home in Interserver Arena or regular arena, but still very effective. A lot of utility. Amelia. So you probably have Amelia. If you're running a Bulwark team in Siege, you probably have Amelia already kitted out, having the ability to cleanse, immunity. Great monster for your slow clears with your water monsters. Still really, really effective, even in Interserver Arena. Juno. Juno is an incredible unit. Once again, a low requirement when it comes to skilling up. A little bit easier to rune. Like you want 100% crit rate, of course, and kind of flexible when it comes to sets. See, we're talking a vampire if you want to solo, despair as well for more utility. I love Juno. Juno's great against your Kiki, Nephthys defenses, but also just against any wind defenses as well. Praha, with the prevalence of a lot of buffs on defenses, and you're going to find that having the ability to strip with Juno and Praha is really, really good against your Wusa teams, and Wusa is going to be everywhere. Tiana and Galleon find their way here because when you want to cleave, they're great answers to cleaving. They deserve a spot here because they are going to be your preeminent cleaving monsters as far as monsters that enable you to do that in the first place. You'll find a way to work these monsters into non-cleaving teams as well, but really, really good. Always will be. We have Desarion rounding out the list. Desarion just makes sense. With the amount of monsters that have passives in defenses, you're talking your mollies, specifically, obviously. And with the advent of Nana being very, very meta in every aspect of the game, having the ability to do the Oblivion on every hit, yeah, Desarion's great. You can even make him your leader for resistance. Resistance can give you so much survivability as far as resisting defense breaks and CC that it can be superior to a HP lead. Or if you don't have a good HP lead, just use your Desarion. Let's move on to 70. 70, we have two more Ifrits and Veramos. Incredibly underrated, in my opinion. I think that, of course, it has an HP lead, which is great. But just the ability to kind of like passively cleanse gives you a reason to make a team that is like an AFK bruiser team. I mean, with Vero, with Molly, with Leo, and an X monster on the 4th spot, I can just press auto and clean out a lot of teams and not have to worry about defense breaks. I don't have to worry about CC. I don't have to worry about taking too much damage. I'll have sustainability with the HP lead and a little bit of random CC and a little bit of pushback. So Veramos is really, really good for a lot of bruiser teams. And then we have Elsharion recently buffed to have a Miles-like passive, but only for buffs that are on your team. So all your allies that have buffs, all those buffs contribute to his speed. And then, of course, the ability to take buffs away from the other team, give to your team, make you faster, and kind of like remove buffs from monsters that need their buffs removed. With the prevalence of, like I said, Wusa, Asharion would be a really, really good monster for a lot of your teams. Rika. So if a team doesn't have an immunity, just like an RTA, last picking an RTA, Rika can be devastating for people who just didn't draft immunity. So when it comes to Interserver Arena, Rika, it doesn't take too much to ruin her out. You probably have her on like some TOA set that's just marginal at best. But the reason for that is because if someone does not have immunity, Rika is going to wreak havoc. And the same case applies here. So if a team that you're seeing has no no immunity on defense, bring a Rika. Kaki just is always going to be really great. From RTA to guild content to arena, Kaki is just the consistent damage dealer who doesn't crit, which is necessary for a lot of monsters. Kaki, we don't have to talk too much about that. Skogul. So you have a really good Skogul for Siege. They are the same type of monsters that you kill in Siege with Skogul. You can kill them in Arena with Skogul as well. I love having Skogul and Gani. I love Skogul with my full 8 win team. It's just it makes bruising a lot faster. So if you got some kinkies you need to kill, you can actually just bring these 3 monsters. You can just bring Tiana, Skogul, Gani. But like I mentioned for Tiana before, with Abilio, having the ability to just kind of survive hits that are surprisingly fast from defenses, that's really great. Otherwise, just a great monster for cleansing, immunity, healing. Gani enables a lot of monsters with reset for both teams. I mean, defense and offense. Resing for yourself is really cool. So Eladriel makes the list kind of lower on the tier, but having the ability to res the entire team is a great safety net. Just having that in the back of your mind just kind of lets you build teams that are much more safe, having a good reser. Annabelle, cleansing, AoE, defense break. We don't have to say too much about it, but still a really good monster. To like, even it's on Nemesis, you can kind of like take a hit and then hope that you can cleanse and heal. Tractor makes a list. Tractor is really used in a lot in Siege as well. I love Tractor against the Savannah defenses. Leo and Tractor together neutralize Savannah a lot. But also, I just like it if there is a wind monster and a Kaki, I'll bring Tractor to CC Kaki. You can CC Vanessa really easily too. Vigor, just another bruiser, HP based monster, giving yourself speed, crit rate reduction can really screw up a lot of monsters' damage on your team as well. Just sustainability in an HP based monster makes sense. Same thing goes for Zerath. I really like the ability for a monster to do a lot of damage but have more utility when it comes to healing. I like the ability to just be an HP based monster and do damage. Tian Lang, better for defenses, obviously. When I think about defenses, when I think about defenses, I don't know if a lot of them in my mind have a lot of attack bar increasing skills. But I just love my Tian. I have a Tian Lang. I put my best runes on him, so it's really cool just to have Tian Lang around, defense break, strip, stun. And but if there are oracles you need to fight against, if you're going against a defense that is a Tiana based, Bastet base, you're just gonna bring Tian Lang and just make it really easy. The Wind Druid, it has res, it has defense buff, it does a lot of damage. I like it, but I still don't like having too many wind monsters on my defenses. I really prefer different elements, but still a good monster overall. And we have Odin. Odin is one of those, it's kind of the same deal with Zerath, Vigor, Fenyang, a monster that has survivability, that can do a lot of damage. The whole buffing nature of the meta, Odin can not really replace, but if you don't have Bulwark, it's possibly an option. But let's move on to the bottom tier. So With the ability for these Interserver arena fights to go pretty long, having the Dark Demon can be kind of gimmicky and fun. Kind of give you a little bit of a safety net as well. Demon is really, really good regardless. Grogan. So Grogan, it would be more for your cleaving teams, but the reason I have him above the other ones in 50 tier, Grogan just has the ability just to shut down the shenanigans with Nana, Pernas, all the self-revivers. We don't have to worry about that. Makes clearing a lot more safe. Does a lot of damage now after the multiple buffs that he's received. Gelnir is just going to be kind of it's more of like a support monster type of thing. And support monsters in Interserver Arena, they have a home in a lot of teams, so don't discount it. Trident is here because if you want to be fast, and if you are fast, having high base speed monsters that strip, silence, Trident is still very decent, not the most amazing for most offenses, but if you're speeding, you can take a Trident into a lot of defenses. Let's go into the Mermaid. Mermaid, really good if you don't have like a Juno. Mermaid's still really good against bombing-based defenses. But I don't use her as much as I use like Veramos or Juno. The Water Dryad, Hernie, has a nice skill 3. The ability to do a 3-turn Oblivion and defense break is cool. I still like Tessarion better because every hit can be Oblivion. That's the big downside when it comes to Hernie. Like, I need Oblivion reliably, very consistently, and the only thing Hernie has going for herself is she's a different element. So if you want to, if you're trying to Oblivion a water monster with Tessarion, not going to be the greatest bet. Hernie, much better. But still, it has a little bit of heals, ability to transfer debuffs from your team into the other team. Really cool. Eleanor, the Light Unicorn, just kind of another sustained monster. Buff to have a lot of ability to weaken defense's offensive output. So I like the Unicorn. If I had the Unicorn, I would use her. Kind of maybe in like a my Miles team or something like that, or an Alsharion team. Lauren can be really cool if you just need a way to guarantee a monster never goes. I use Lauren's against Onimusha and stuff like that. Very, very effective. And you probably have one decently ruined as well. Isis can be pretty memey in the sense that, a lot of people are like, oh, she sucks and she's a terrible LD Nat 5. But like I mentioned before, when it comes to Oblivion, having the ability to Oblivion in silence for a long period of time. There's so many passive based monsters. Like there are so many times I go into a match and I say to myself, if I only had an Isis, right? It would make the difference sometimes. Just as far as not like, I still might be able to clear the defense, but mostly it's just about ease, because some of these defenses can be a big chore, and having a monster that can do the AoE Oblivion, I mean, it'd be insane. Luis, this is another HP supporty type of monster, shield, heal, immunity. Great monster. If you have her, you probably just use her a lot in Siege. Shan, the buffed Chimera. I die to this thing a lot. I don't know why. I just do. I keep forgetting that it can really mess me up when it comes to stunning. So I like the monster. HP based monsters that you can make with HP that do a lot of stuff. I love them for Interserver Arena. Perna has the ability to heal herself now again, and higher base speed, does really good damage, and also now strips with skill 2. Cool monster. But the reason it's lower on the list is because you don't really want monsters that die. You don't want any of your monsters to die. Like if they die, you have a reserve for kind of a backup plan, but you're going to be fighting so many nanas that you don't want monsters that are like, okay, you had the premise in your mind, like, okay, if it dies, that's fine. It'll come back to life. No, that can really mess you up. Icaris, just healing, big single target damage. And the fact that it's used a lot in regular arena, I think it would find a home in one of your Interserver Arena offenses if you need that big single target damage and kind of like a more bruisery type of offense. Then we have Jolton. Jolton, very niche, but let's say in the upper echelons of interserver teams, you're probably going to find a lot of defenses that are all like light based. They're going to have Artemil, Chroma, Molly, and like Iris or something like that. And so having a reflect dark monster that you can just rune out with 50,000 hit points, Jolton is perfect for that. It doesn't need to be incredible as fast runes, just really tank your runes to survive. Get some artifacts that reduce damage from light as well to give yourself a chance. You're going to want a monster that can cleanse, or two monsters that can cleanse, because HP recovery debuff on this monster would be devastating. Devastating. Speaking of healing, speaking of cleansing, Ariel finds himself lower on the list. It's a good monster. I mean, having a big heal, having the big cleanse, it's good. It's just kind of a single note monster that I would love to have more utility from a healer, but still a fantastic monster if you want sustainability and you don't have other monsters ruined out. Windy, I like the idea of Windy, kind of like the same idea of Tractor, but I find Tractor has so much more use because a Savannah that's attacking my Tractor is not going to do as much damage as a Kaki attacking my Windy, right? Like, so if you're taking your Windy into a match against a fire monster you want to tank, hopefully it's not a big single target nuke type of monster, because you're still going to have a really bad day. Like, you don't like, I've taken Windy into Pernas and like, oops, no work out too great. Oop, take Windy into Kaki. Oops, that didn't work out too great. So it's just one notch below Tractor, but you can find a lot of use for Windy, but I still think Tractor in a current meta is going to be much more effective when fighting against Savannahs. Rikuni, kind of like a sustained monster as far as like the ability to mini cleanse, to do a little bit of healing, but also a great enabler. And it's better than enablers that are in the tier below it, because you don't have to have a Rikuni in a team that's going to cleave. Any team that just relies on, like, maybe they want to do more damage based off speed, or if you just want a monster to go because they don't have the runes to go, Rikuni is a great enabler in that sense, and a little bit of sustain. So let's go down to the last tier, which has monsters that are more centered around cleaving, enabling cleaving as well, and stripping. So they kind of go without much description necessary, but they're good because there are still some defenses that can be cleaved really easily. I would say, though, with a caveat, let's say you're in like team 168. There's 200 total teams. So if you're 168, you're probably on the lower end of the echelon of good defenses and offenses. So if you're in those lower teams, higher number but lower teams as far as ranks goes, you are going to find, you can Lucian half the defenses probably. But as you go up in rank and go up in team, the higher and higher you go in team, the less and less likely you're going to be able to effectively cleave teams. Like, I think when you get, I'm in team 34 and I see a lot of Tianlangs, but in the higher teams you're going to be seeing much more Tianlangs. You're going to be much more highly runed monsters that cleaving is just not really reliable if you want to get consistent wins. So they're going to find themselves on the bottom of the list in a way that maybe you can use them half the time if you're lower ranked. So 50 sounds like a good number, but don't rely on them to win consistently, especially if you go up in rank. But yeah, so that's my tier list for season 1 of Interserver Arena. We're halfway through. We're doing week 3 right now. But yeah, so I'm sure this list will evolve with time, especially based off how people tweak their defenses and the meta changes, but also as the seasons go on, I think much more information is going to be put out as far as effective offenses and defenses that this list will evolve. But thank you for listening, and I'll be back with another video soon. Thanks, guys.